American Teacher on YouTube. If you haven't, please click subscribe and give me a thumbs up and leave some comments in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Today I wanted to talk about China and the false narratives that it's trying to push to divert attention away from its ruthless tactics to silence critics, especially within its own country. Now, if it could, it would silence its critics everywhere, but it doesn't have that power. So right now it is focusing on its critics inside China. I will read a quote from a teacher at the Dabancheng facility. A teacher at the Dabancheng facility also called it worse than hell, according to a colleague at a different camp. The teacher said that during classes she could hear the sounds of people being tortured with electric batons and iron chairs. So here's the takeaway. China continues to lie about the mass incarceration of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province. They continue to incarcerate them. And even though China says that these people have committed crimes, it's very doubtful. The official words out of the Chinese government are not trustworthy. I mean, just in this one article, the officials have been proved to be lying. And what I wanted to get, the point I was trying to make is this. I know a lot of people in America are frustrated because there are many people who still haven't taken the coronavirus vaccine. And maybe some people are even enamored with a more powerful government type than the one we have in the US, in which the government can force people to be vaccinated. And even though I'm a very liberal person, let me say this. Once you head down that slippery slope, there's no going back. So we can't force people to be vaccinated. We are not that kind of country. Also, people who think that China is efficient, think about this. Right now, it's the Muslims in China. But what if a Christian or, someone from another religion that you belong to decided to criticize the government, and the government decided to indiscriminately round up all members of your religion and put them in these re-education facilities, which are torture camps? We might not all agree on the correct religion. We might not all agree on the correct way to deal with COVID-19. But I think we can agree on one thing. We can live together in peace without the need for an authoritarian government putting us in concentration camps. And basically that's what's happening in China. And you might think, well, I'm nobody. The government would never go after me. In China, that's not true. I saw a story just the other day about a 19-year-old student. His crime was talking about negatively about the Chinese government. The government, he traveled overseas. The government confiscated his passport, had his passport canceled, and the government had his green card taken away. He also had a green card. He was a permanent U.S. resident. Had his green card taken away. And so he is currently stuck in a country applying for asylum And the government has gotten to his parents back home in China. The government has rounded up his parents and had them send a letter to him urging him to come back to China to stand trial for his crimes of speaking negatively about the Chinese government. So that's the kind of society that's in China, and we definitely do not want that in America. So have faith, have patience with each other. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean we can't live together in peace. We don't need a government to tell us what to do. And on the flip side of that, just because, President Biden might be sending people around urging you to get vaccinated, they are not enforcers. The Chinese people are laughing at you right now if you think that these people are enforcers in the U.S. The real enforcers are in China. These people are just urging you to get vaccinated. They're not forcing you. And that's the difference between the U.S. and China. So even if you don't like President Biden, you can admit that the U.S. is a free country and China is not. And Taiwan is a free country. I mean, the proof is here. Here I am recording this video and talking about the American government and the Chinese government, and I don't worry about anyone knocking on my door and coming to pick me up. And to me, that is the most important thing. Something that is sacred, something that we must cherish and safeguard. I saw an article, and it's titled Room for 10,000 Inside China's Largest Detention Center. The area that this is written about is, or written from, is Dabancheng, China. Okay, I'm going to read some of the article to you and then comment on what I think. The Uyghur inmates sat in uniform rows with their legs crossed in lotus position and their backs ramrod straight, numbered and tagged, gazing at a television playing grainy black and white images of the Chinese Communist Party history. This is one of an estimated 240 cells in just one section of Urumqi No. 3 Detention Center in Dabancheng, seen by Associated Press journalists, granted extraordinary access during a state-led tour to China's far west Xinjiang region. The detention center is the largest in the country and possibly the world, with a complex that sprawls over 220 acres, making it twice as large as the Vatican City. A sign at the front identified it as a Kanshou Suo, a pre-trial detention facility. Chinese officials declined to say how many inmates there were, saying the number varied. But the AP estimated that the center could hold roughly 10,000 people, and many more if crowded, based on satellite imagery and the cells and benches seen during the tour. While the BBC and Reuters have in the past reported from the outside, the AP was the first Western media organization allowed in. The site suggests that China still holds and plans to hold vast numbers of Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim minorities in detention. Satellite imagery shows that new buildings stretching almost a mile long were added to the Dabancheng detention facility in 2019. China has described its sweeping lockup of 1 million or more minorities over the past 4 years as, quote, a war on terror, end quote. Among its most controversial aspects were the so-called vocational training centers, described by former detainees as brutal internment camps, surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards. China at first denied their existence, and then under heavy international criticism said in 2019 that all the occupants had, quote, graduated, end quote. But the AP's visit to Dabancheng, satellite imagery, and interviews with experts and former detainees suggest that while many training centers were indeed closed, and they have training centers in quotation marks, some like this one were simply converted into prisons or pre-trial detention facilities. Many new facilities have also been built, including a new 85-acre detention center down the road from number 3 in Dabancheng that went up over 2019, satellite imagery shows. The changes seem to be an attempt to move from the makeshift and extrajudicial, quote, training centers, end quote, into a more permanent system of prisons and pretrial detention facilities justified under the law. While some Uyghurs have been released, others have simply been moved into this prison network. However, researchers say many innocent people were often thrown in detention for things like going abroad or attending religious gatherings. Darren Byler, an anthropologist studying Uyghurs at the University of Colorado, noted that many prisoners have not committed, quote, real crimes by any standards, moving from a police state to a mass incarceration state. Hundreds of thousands of people have disappeared from the population, Byler said. It is the criminalization of normal behavior. Okay, thank you for watching, American Teacher. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Give me a thumbs up. Bye-bye.